Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam, Salie. What's anything?
Okay, I think we're going to start now. I'm going to ask you, Muhammad Fasih, to start with the opening dua for us, inshallah.
Inshallah, Ameen. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم أنت ربي لا إله إلا أنت عليك توكلت وأنت رب العرش الكريم ما شاء الله كان وما لم يشأ لم يكن ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وأصحابه وبارك وسلم دعواهم فيها سبحانك اللهم وتحيتهم فيها سلام وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.
Shukran, Muhammad Fasih. And welcome to everyone else. Tonight we're going to continue with the topic about the Ruh. Now, whilst we're waiting on some of the other people to join us, let me just quickly recap on what we said last week. Oh, I've gone too far. I want to start off tonight's lesson by quickly just referring to the Quranic Ayah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala assembled all of us while we were still in the form of our souls, of our ruh, into one place. And at that time, something very significant happened. Allah informed the Malaa'ikah that he was placing a Khalifa on earth. And it was also the occasion when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught the names to all of us. We were then in the form of our ruh, and we could understand and comprehend the full meaning of the names. Now, the names are not only the names of things in creation, but the actual beautiful names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the divine names. And not even the Malaa'ikah could explain the names the way we were able to. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us as human beings to teach these names to the Malaa'ikah. It was also the occasion when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instructed the Malaa'ikah and Iblis was present at the time. We know he is not a Malaa'ikah. To prostrate to human beings, to insan, as a mark of respect and not as a mark of worship. I think it's important for us to make that distinction, that that Malaa'ikah are blessed beings who can't do anything wrong. They've been created only to be obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Iblis was of a different kind. He was of the jinn kind, and he was given choice. So he chose not to prostrate to Nabi Adam. And that was the time when he was rejected from Jannah. And we know we'll speak more about Shaitan at the later stage, inshallah. Now, tonight, we're going to go on to the second event that happened. 3 events happened at the time when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala assembled all of us in the form of our ruh into one place and addressed us. And that the first one was when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala informed the Malaa'ikah that we're going to be placed on the dunya as Khalifas, and that the names were taught to us. That was the first one. Now the second one that I want to come to, we all are somewhat familiar with this Quranic verse, chapter 7, verse 172. Alastu bi rabbikum. Allah was addressing us as human beings and asked, am I not your Lord? And we replied, yes, indeed, we testify. It was a time when we were in pure ruh form, and we didn't have the influence of shaitan, the nafs, and the dunya, and people to deflect us or to distract us in any way whatsoever. And we could attest to the truth that we acknowledged, accepted, and testified. Now, when we recite the Kalima, we say, Ashhadu, I bear witness, I testify. Now, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is unseen, how do we understand this? That now we are expected as human beings, as the first step to becoming a Muslim, we have to recite the Kalima. Without the Kalima, nothing else can follow to become a Muslim. You can't become a Muslim if you are not, if you have not recited the Kalima. So even now, we have to recite the Kalima. I bear witness. I'm talking now in our material human form on earth, that we have to recite. It's a requirement on all of us to recite the Kalima. Even before I start with anything else, what is the connection between us having to recite the Kalima now and the fact that we recited the Kalima when we were in the form of our ruh? Is the one not enough? What is the difference between the two? I'm immediately going to throw open the floor and just to get 1 or 2 responses to this. I'm opening up the floor to comments or questions. Is there anyone who wishes to comment? If not, let me move on. Let me immediately move on. We were called upon to testify that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is our Rabb, our creator. In case on the day of Qiyamah, when the same question is going to be asked, that we would say, no, Allah was unseen, we didn't know Allah. Allah gave us that experience to our ruh, so that we can't use that as an excuse. We weren't aware, we didn't know. Allah was not known to us. We knew Allah at the time when Allah put this question, Alastu bi Rabbikum, and we said, yes, yes, Allah, you are our Lord, you are our Creator, you are our Rabb. And that knowledge is contained within your ruh, and that same ruh goes into your body with that knowledge and the names as well. Now, the ruh could answer with certainty at that time because it was pure. The influence, it had no nafs. As we said previously when we were discussing about the nafs only becomes activated in a human being at the time when the body is alive on the dunya. There is no life for the nafs before and after the body. It accompanies the body, it is part of the body. So there was no nafs yet because we were still in the form of our ruh. Now, if we look at that, then one of the things that we must realize is, so Shaitan existed before us. He was roaming in Jannah amongst the Malaa'ikah, and he had already been expelled. And he had asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give him a reprieve, to allow him to distract us. And Allah gave him that. Because we didn't enter our body yet, and we weren't on the dunya, the distractions of the dunya and the nafs had no influence on us. So at that time, we made a true oath, a covenant, that we are connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the form of the Kalima now, today. So reflect on that when you recite the Kalima, that this is not something that we must utter. By the way, I didn't say my Kalima when I got up or before I went to sleep, I forgot. It must be something that becomes part of our life, not only when we go to sleep or when we wake up. It is something that we must treasure as an experience that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us in that angelic realm before we descended down to the dunya. At that same time, so the first thing is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us as Khalifas on earth. Allah taught us the names. That was the first thing. The second thing, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala posed the question to us, am I your Lord? Alastu bi Rabbikum? And we confirmed, yes, Allah is our Lord. And the third thing, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala offered us at that time in chapter 33, verse 72. In this ayah, Allah speaks about the trust that was given to the heavens and the earth, which they did not accept because they were scared of it. They were afraid to accept it because they understood what it meant. And that trust was the opportunity to exercise free will and choice. Now, free will and choice must be understood that everything else in creation exists purely on the basis of compulsion. Compulsion in terms of what Allah has decreed for them, whether they are Malaa'ikah or a tree or a mountain or a piece of rock or a plant, they can only be what Allah has designed them to be. And they were very scared. If they were given the opportunity to be distracted by shaitan and the nafs and the dunya, they wouldn't be able to execute their function to remain close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But mankind accepted it. And Allah says mankind accepted this offer, but he was unjust to himself and ignorant of the significance of this trust. But this trust, this ability to choose between right and wrong gives us the possibility of rising way above any of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creation, because they can only be what they have to be. They are in a permanent state of ibadah. Everything is in a permanent state of ibadah except us. We have the choice to be in a state of ibadah or not, to be obedient to Allah or not to be obedient, to go against the guidance of the Quran and Sunnah. And here Allah says to us in this verse that we were ignorant of the significance of this offer that was given to us, which we accepted as human beings. Now, of course, we weren't just given the choice without the knowledge that if we do good and we follow what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has instructed us to do, then we will be rewarded for that. But on the other side, if we are distracted by shaitan, the dunya and the nafs, then there's a consequence. So we are not forced to do anything as human beings. No one forces us ever. Not your nafs, not shaitan, not the dunya. No one forces you. You make your own choices. Allah doesn't make our choices. Allah has designed the world with certain conditions and circumstances in it and placed us in between good and bad, and we must now exercise our choice. But Allah will allow us to do the wrong as long as we know and we accept that we have been warned. If you do the wrong, there's a consequence. You're going to be punished for it. So free will was given to man, and man accepted it. So to summarize, there were three things that happened while we were in the angelic form of existence, at that plane of existence before we were born, before we became human beings on the dunya. The first one is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught us the names, Allah's names. Secondly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put the question to us, and we acknowledged and confirmed and attested and declared that Allah is our Rabb. We acknowledged that and confirmed it. And thirdly, we accepted choice. Now, those are the three things that happened when we were in the form of our souls, our spirits. There was no body, there was no flesh, there was no dunya. And it was with that we now descend down to the level of the dunya. Now, where does choice fit in? I explained a bit about that. Let me just throw that up quickly. So now we have been given all of that. Where does choice fit in all of this? We know that Allah is our Rabb, and we understand Allah's names at the time of our birth. And we accepted the free will and choice. We know what the consequences are going to be of either good or bad. So where does choice fit into all of this of what we have just said now? Let me just pause there and throw that up as a question.
But Salie, in terms of free will and choice, ultimately, I think the greatest honor that man could be given, or that anyone could be given, any creature could be given, is the ability to want to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to want to recognize Allah's greatness, and to show appreciation from oneself, rather than, for instance, with the Malaa'ikah and other creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who have not taken the amana of choice. Therefore, they perform ibadah, they recognize Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but because they are compelled and they feel compelled, whereas man has a choice. He doesn't feel compelled in a sense. So if he chooses, then he has chosen without without Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala having had to compel him, I suppose. So I think that is the greatest station that man can have.
Okay,
Salie, I want to continue from what Muhammad Fasih has said. So once you then exercise your choice, because when you exercise choice, it's like you take on that burdensomeness, because you have the weight of both sides that you constantly have to weigh up. But then once you exercise that choice, you then become an autonomous being. So you then start to have the spark of the independent, which is actually it's one of the names of Allah, that Allah is autonomous. And so we then become, that's part of our a spiritual nature, that we then exercise choice. We are not just slaves. We are dignified human beings who can choose between two different positions. So that's what I want to say. Shukran.
Shukran, Shaida. Is there anyone else who would like to add? Okay, let's move on. Now, okay, so choice, as we mentioned earlier, the gateway to the heart, the human heart, the qalb, is the mind or the intellect. Now, whatever options we are confronted with on the dunya are processed by the mind, and the mind then in turn instructs the body to respond in a particular way. But we said previously that what the mind is filled with also goes to the heart, and it influences the heart, whether it's good or bad. And what is in the heart also goes to the mind. So yes, we can be influenced by what is happening in our surroundings, but if your heart is clean, your heart will send the right kind of message to the mind. And then the actions of the body is determined by who is in control, who has the biggest influence over whom. The mind over the heart, or the heart over the mind. And ultimately, the mind then again, because the mind is in control of your human faculties. It controls the body. If ever time allows, we'll speak about how the human body operates, but it's in fact just a system of chemicals and electricity. The entire human body works only on those two systems: chemical energy and electrical energy, and that's the complete human being. So that's at the physical level. So at the physical level, The mind instructs the body to behave in a particular way, depending on the choices we make. And choice is what makes us different from the Malaa'ikah. It's what makes us different from animals. But yet, the Malaa'ikah is a being that is permanently in ibadah. It's a very elevated being that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created. Whereas animals behave instinctively. How they make ibadah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if only we knew, everything is in a state of ibadah, but we don't know. Allah says that. We don't know how, we can't describe it, but even the animals are in a state of ibadah. By being what they have been created is already obedience. So we have these two things within ourselves. The animal, which tends towards instinctive behavior, close to the nafs, and we have and the angelic nature. If we can remind ourselves when we were roaming amongst the Malaa'ikah, we were at that level. So we have the potential to become either way, animal or Malaa'ikah. And as we've said, we are under no compulsion. Nobody, if you stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala one day to account for how you've exercised your choices, don't think you can use that I was forced or I was compelled to do X, Y, or Z. I'm talking about external factors now. I'm not talking about the person keeping a gun to your head and saying, do this or do that. That can be a form of compulsion. We're talking about normal, average behavior and circumstances where we use the excuse of shaitan or our nafs or the dunya force us. Force and compulsion does not apply to us. We make choices. And we make choices. Yes, we get distracted and influenced by these things, but we can never use that. And of course, where we will end up one day will be based on how we exercise our choices between right and wrong. Now, when we were in the angelic phase, for those people who may have missed out on this part, it's good to hear this, but it's also a good reminder for those who were part of the previous session to test your own understanding of whether you really grasp it fully. That when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught us the divine names, it was also accompanied by our bearing witness that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is our master, and that we accepted free will and choice. But what we have been given as human beings is what no one else, especially through this knowledge of the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes who Allah is without describing the being itself. Allah is the creator, Allah is all-seeing. It describes everything that Allah can do and Allah's abilities and qualities. And through that, you get to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now at that angelic level, that knowledge was so pure, so profound, that we were true knowers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like the awliya and the karamats and all those pious people. We as human beings at that level, when we were with the Malaa'ikah, we were able to know and witness Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a way that none other can know and witness Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, when we say witness, and I am going to come to that in the next slide or two, where knowledge goes through three very distinct phases. It's important to remember this point. Knowledge goes from where we use our minds to acquire knowledge, normally through our five senses. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us wisdom. And wisdom takes you to the door of the heart. But your mind can't enter into the spiritual heart. It's only with the spiritual heart, which is unseen, that you can actually know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there, you don't know with the brain. You actually taste and experience the knowledge. It can't be explained any other way. Because now you're talking about the heart, and I'm trying to explain something with the mind and using worldly language. And mankind is the only creation that was given that very special type of ability to actually know Allah to that extent and to be able to witness Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the most profound possible way that creation can know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jailani Qaddasallahu Sirrul Aziz says that knowledge, that specialized knowledge that we acquired in the angelic world, is within the heart of every single person, right in the center of the heart. The heart is the center of the body, and within the heart is another heart, the heart of the hearts, or the secret of the secrets. It's right in the inner recesses, and it is not a physical location. It's a spiritual location. So it's the core, the ultimate core of the spiritual heart. Now, as we previously said, and we're going to repeat these things over and over till it sinks in completely and you get to know it backwards, that around the heart we have veils, both of darkness. The veils of darkness are normally veils of darkness which are formed by ignorance, disobedience, neglect, carelessness, and heedlessness. Those form more and more dark veils around the heart. And then to get veils of light, which will allow only so much nur to enter your heart or to leave your heart as your body is able to cope with. Now, those veils are around the hearts of all human beings. And our challenge is to actually do what we can to remove these veils that surround our hearts. So within every single human being exists the potential to become a true knower of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Every single human being, no exceptions, Muslim or non-Muslim, believer or non-believer, atheist or not. Every human being has that potential within themselves to become a true knower of Allah, because that knowledge resides deep within the heart of hearts of every single human being. Now, we said that there are three types of knowledge. Okay, I've already put it up. So I might as well leave it on. Is the acquisition of knowledge through our minds and our five senses, and then through wisdom, and then through tasting. Now I want just to take a quick pause there and then find out whether there are any comments or questions before I move on, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
The Salie, Manie, I was always under the impression that the jinn also has choice, because they also accepted Islam, and then we get Muslim jinn and non-Muslim jinn. So is it just we that have choice, but do they also have choice? I'm a bit confused.
No, you're right. You're right. I didn't want to, I want to stay far away from the jinn. The jinn and mankind are the only two species that were given choice. No one else has choice. That's why when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instructed the Malaa'ikah, to prostrate, to bow down to Nabi Adam, they had no choice. But jinn, if he was a Malaa'ikah, he wouldn't have had choice. He would have had to just do the same. But he was given choice. He existed long before mankind. This dunya, as we know it, was occupied with jinn. And that's a topic that I would urge people not to go into too deeply. Just know jinn is a creation, and jinn can be both Muslim and non-Muslim, but we are not going to go too deep into that. But yes, you are 100% right. They are the other creation that's been given the ability to choose. So yes, any other question before we move on? Okay, let's move on. So we've got the three types of knowledge. Now, we're talking at the level of the mind now, how we normally acquire knowledge. The normal process is to use your brain, logic, and the reasoning, and memorizing. That's how you obtain knowledge. Or you can get knowledge through education and training. And I got memorizing. I didn't even realize I repeated that way. And then we can learn through our own experiences or learn from the experiences of others. And of course, we learn through our five senses. If you touch something, you know you shouldn't touch it again because it's too hot or too cold or whatever. Or you smell something and you associate a certain smell with certain environments or objects. Or you taste something and you associate taste with it, and that's how you grow your knowledge. And then eventually you have what you have. And you also learn by looking at your environment. Now that's the normal process of acquiring knowledge. Then you get the second level, wisdom. Now let me say, wisdom is not something that we can acquire. Wisdom is something that comes as a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. People will have different views on the matter. And yes, we can hear what those views are, but let's just look at what is wisdom. Normally, it comes with age or experience again. Or it can be transmitted to you through different means. It could even be an inspiration. And wisdom can also be because of unveiling. Now, unveiling has to do with our understanding of what we said earlier, that the heart is surrounded by veils, and that wisdom can come when Allah removes certain veils that allows you to get an insight into certain things. Now let's just look at what we've said about the info graphic that we've just done now. Wisdom means you get a deeper understanding or perspective or insight that gives you the ability to make sound judgments of what to do or not to do, whether something is right or whether something is wrong. It's not a superficial, basic level. It's one above what the average person has. Wisdom, if you have it, you've got something that is special, and it should be seen as special. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, whoever is granted wisdom has indeed been granted abundant wealth. It's regarded even as more important than material things. That's the importance. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as our owner, our creator, the one who understands everything about this world and how it operates, says wisdom is worth more than money. It normally comes with age and experience, but it's not a guarantee. Some people die and they are most foolish, and they can be very old. They've had all the experience and they are old, but they still die and they're very unwise. But normally, as people grow older, you can see it especially in your parents and your grandparents, and even other older, the older generation around you. You can see that as people grew older, they became more wiser. And yes, we are taught as Muslims that it's not something that you can study for. You can't study to be wise. You can have a lot of knowledge. You can have all the book knowledge that there is available on the topic, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you acquire wisdom. Wisdom comes as a direct blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there is a criteria, of course, you have to qualify for it. And the qualification is determined by the level of your heart. If you have the kind of heart that's sincere and wanting to get closer to Allah, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lifts the veils and gives you that knowledge, that wisdom, that you are able to see things that other people miss. They walk past it all the time. But Allah gives you the ability. And you will find even in your own lives, you might not have it permanently, but you will suddenly realize that what you've overlooked all your life, you suddenly see it in a different light. That's a sign of wisdom. When people speak about a certain matter and you can give an insight that they don't have, and it's not done to show off, then that is also a sign of wisdom. So recognize the blessing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you. Not because you qualify or you've earned it. It comes as a direct blessing. And the blessing comes because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rewards you for this path that you are on, of wanting to get closer and nearer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It can also be achieved through guidance or transmission or even inspiration from your spiritual guide, your murshid, or a very pious person in order to assist you on this path. He assists with Allah's help. He assists for you to understand things in a much better way. Because your sheikh, your Kamil Sheikh, your perfected Sheikh on Tasawwuf, who's there to guide you. He is there to assist you to purify your heart. So he advises you and inspires you to do things in a way where you now start acquiring that wisdom which you otherwise would not have had if it was not for his assistance. And of course, with the qudra of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And one of the hallmarks of a wise person, they are generally silent when other people are busy talking away there and quickly jumping and being hasty. A wise person is generally more patient. They don't quickly give an opinion. They wait, assess, listen to the question before they answer, or they wait before they do this or that. And they are normally people who are humble enough to learn from anyone, whether it is a street sweeper or a beggar or a laborer, and he is a teacher or a principal or a lawyer or whatever. If he's a wise person, he would know that he can learn from anyone. They're not above that. So that is wisdom. Now we get the next level. What is witnessing an experience? How would you describe that? How would you describe what is witnessing an experience? You need to just pause here again and take some comments or questions about what you think this is.
But Salie, like Salie mentioned that when a person reaches a certain level, that one is engaging with matters of the soul, the mind can only take you to the door of that knowledge. So similarly, that experience, when one is witnessing an experience, experiencing the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that can only be experienced through the spiritual heart and through the mechanism of the spiritual heart and the soul itself. So it's that feeling, it's that I would say tasting rather than anything else.
Okay. All right. Anyone else wish to add to that?
I think it is to acknowledge and accept and admit that Allah is the creator of us, and to see Allah around us and acknowledge Allah as a creator.
Okay. Now, if we say this is, if you say normal knowledge is that you have, that comes to your mind. Okay, I think what I must do, I wasn't going to do that slide now, but I think I should actually do it after this one. Let me just go through this one. Witnessing. Opening is a term that's used in Tasawwuf. It's like opening a door, a spiritual door. You get a lesser opening and you get a greater opening. A lesser opening is where you are able to enter the spiritual terrain. Remember, you've progressed now from being just a practicing Muslim, doing your salah and fasting whenever you must, and then you get on with your life. And you don't have much time for Allah in between, but you do everything that you're compelled to do. Inshallah, you'll go to Jannah, but you remain at that level. We're talking about the people who are moving on now, and they want to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then an opening is created. It's referred to as an opening. Fath. An opening, a door that's opened for you. And as I said, you can get the lesser opening, and you can get the greater opening. The greater opening is the opening of the awliya and the saints. Then one can also get an opening through what is referred to intoxication. Intoxication is, it comes and associated with the word of drunkenness. In the physical world, you get it when you drink certain types of alcohol that intoxicates and numbs your brain, and you behave in a way that you are out of control of your body. You're intoxicated. Now you can become spiritually intoxicated, where your mind is switched off. You are now drunk with the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You swim in that, you drown in it, you intoxicate it. And then when that happens, you actually taste and experience Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's nearness. It's not knowledge that falls on the brain that you can describe. It's a state that you experience and feel. And there are three levels of tasting. Is when you get a glimpse of what? A glimpse of what is beyond your mind, what you can't comprehend. It comes as a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where you're suddenly given this experience, either an experience, a physical experience, or insight into something very profound, or sometimes not even very profound, but profound, different to what you would have had under normal circumstances. Now then you taste the knowledge. You don't understand that the brain is not involved. You feel the knowledge, you taste the knowledge. It's a state of feeling rather than a state of knowing. Then you get the advanced stages of that as you make progress. And your heart is able to take on more. As the heart is able to take on more, the taps are open a bit wider, because the cup that you are holding can hold more now. Now you're not just given a sip, you're given a cup. And now you can drink, but you can only drink insofar as you are able to cope with whatever is coming, because this is, this comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You can't explain it. There's no limit to what can come to you, because it comes from Allah. The source is endless. And we are limited by the kind of cup that we have. So Allah limits the amount where you can actually drink. And the true knowers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they get to the stage where they quench. They saturated. They drink till they can't drink anymore. They don't have the need. Oh, well, maybe we'll always have a need for this kind of experience or knowledge, but they are quenched. They satisfied with the experience. They've reached the level of where they have no desire to drink anymore. It also comes through unveiling. All of these things, witnessing. That unveiling is what it says, kashf, where the veils are removed. Depending on how many veils are removed, that will determine the amount of nur and illumination that your heart will experience. And we've spoken about the veils. Bewilderment, where you are so in awe of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as you ponder and reflect on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, your mind can't cope anymore. It switches off. And you go into a state that you can't describe. You are bewildered. You confused. Your mind is completely switched off by this strange feeling. And with it also comes knowledge and experience that is suited to the spiritual heart. So in words, that was the infographic, is to know that witnessing and tasting is beyond the mind and the five senses. Those are not things that you can explain or describe. If you get the taste of it, if you're lucky enough to get the taste of it, you will say to somebody else, oh, it's such a, and you look for the words, you won't find a word. You'll maybe come up with an inadequate word. It's such a good feeling. It's such a great feeling. I feel like, and you will try and find something to associate it with, but you won't be able to describe it in words because it's got nothing to do with the mind. If you get a true spiritual experience like this, because we are talking about knowledge that's unrelated to the laws of the universe. We are talking about knowledge that's experienced, that is otherworldly. One could almost say supernatural, without trying to give the impression that you're experiencing a miracle or anything like that. That's a separate discussion. If time ever allows, we can come to that discussion. But the heart, the spiritual heart, is the only entity that can cope with this experience, not the mind. So people who want to, I think, I know, I worked it out like this and that, you're going to remain at that level. You're going to get stuck there if you don't watch out. Because one of the things that the nafs tell you immediately is, no, it's not like that. It's easy. And why don't you this, that, and I can work it out, and that doesn't make sense and whatever. Using just the mind as your means of trying to acquire knowledge and getting closer to Allah. If you only use your mind, you're going to get stuck there and you will remain at the level where you won't even be granted wisdom, never mind this kind of experience. And you can look around you. There are many examples of that, where there are people who are stuck at that level of the mind, and you can hear they're everything but wise. And they will never acquire this kind of experience. So learn from that when you observe it in other people. But if you were to describe this experience in whatever way you're going to describe it to a knower of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, somebody has had a similar experience and walked the same path and developed along the way, they will understand what you're saying, and will equally, even if they understand what you're saying, they won't be able to transfer the thing through the normal means of letting you know what the experience is. There's another kind of communication that can't be described. Now, we are stuck here in this dunya, both in terms of how we think and what governs our bodies and how we respond and engage with the things around us. Whereas what we are talking about, if you are fortunate enough to have reached a stage where you experience and taste some of this, you must remember you are now in the unseen realm of existence. It's a spiritual realm that's totally divorced from the material world. But what happens is the body reacts and responds. You just feel joy and ecstasy and utter calmness and serenity and totally at peace with yourself. You feel that. And because this is happening at the level of the spiritual heart, the ruh is still in your body. You can't define exactly where. It's not only this piece of flesh on the left-hand side. The ruh is in your body, and the ruh experiences this. But the ruh is inside your body. So what does the body do? It doesn't always do this for everyone. But in the initial stages, of getting these glimpses and moments of tasting, then the physical body doesn't know how to respond because it doesn't come from the mind now. The mind is normally the one that says, oh, I put my hand on the stove, and the brain says, take it off. The brain says, take off, because the signal of burning and pain transmitted in a fraction of a second to your brain, and the brain in a fraction of a second tells the finger, lift up your finger. Now the signal doesn't come from the mind. The mind doesn't know where it is. The mind is switched off. So there's nothing that tells the physical body how to respond. So it responds in an involuntary way. And it's not under the control of the mind. The moment these things happen and it's under the control of the mind, then don't fool yourself to say this is one of those experiences. It's normally accompanied by involuntary movements, physical. The body, this experience, this tasting, this witnessing expresses itself in the body through involuntary movements. You jerk, you shake, you tremble, you go into almost like a fit, spasms. You cry not with your eyes, you cry from deep within. It comes from inside, you cry. That's why we are advised to develop that ability to cry from within, not in front of people. If you can, do it on your own, alone, at night when there's no one. Stand there, alone in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and cry. And sometimes, if you're lucky, you can feel that it's not coming from your eyes and your mind. You can feel it's coming from inside. And let it come out, let it pour out. Let it pour out. Whatever you think is out of love or fear or regret and remorse, but stand in front of Allah and cry, weep, cry for the longing of wanting to be near and close to Him, and cry so that Allah can remove the veils and the obstacles from your path. Allahu Akbar. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for us to get taste like this, inshallah.
Amen.
I don't want to go on further. There's a few more things that I wanted to say. But I think I've reached the end of this. I wonder if I shouldn't just maybe quickly do this, because, yeah, I'm going to do this. Allahu Akbar. Just so that we have an idea, then all the things are linked. I was going to do something else, but I think it's more appropriate to do this one. So we start off with the heart. The heart has veils around it. Veils on the outside are normally the veils of darkness. Now, the heart and the mind speaks to one another. Go through the previous flow diagrams, infographics that we've done to see the relationship between the heart and the mind and how they speak to one another. Now, there's a place where the mind speaks to the heart and the heart speaks to the mind, and that is the space. So there's a space in the heart where the mind can speak to it and influence it. Then you get the heart within your heart. And when we talk heart, now we're talking the spiritual heart. Okay? We're not talking about the physical heart. We're talking about that spiritual something, that unseen something that's within all of us. It also has veils around it, right? So we have the veils, the outer veils, and then we have more veils. In fact, there are, I'm now unsure now. I know that it said that there are more than 70,000 veils around the heart. I'm not sure whether it's 70,000 veils of darkness and 70,000 veils of light, but whatever it is, 70,000, subhanallah, just to get through one veil is a major obstacle. But what it says is that there are veils of darkness and veils of light, and it's not just one or two. There are thousands upon thousands of veils. It obviously varies from one person to the other. These are the veils of light. Now, where the door of the heart, the inner heart, the mind cannot enter there. It's off limits. No matter what you do to the mind cannot go beyond that point. It's blocked there. So whatever role the mind plays, remember there's a point at which the mind plays no more role. And that's the place where, although wisdom can be, we can get wisdom here also. Let me just, where's my pointer? I don't know, where's my pointer now? Okay, I've lost my pointer. No, but I must get it now. You see, when you're getting old, oh, there's my pointer. I don't know if you can see this little dot. This is a place where you can also have some wisdom, where the mind can have the benefit of wisdom, but the true place of wisdom, true wisdom, is where the mind cannot go beyond. That comes from a different source. And then, of course, you get where the secret of secrets are kept. The secret of secrets, what did we say? What is that? That's knowledge of the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is your doorway to getting to know, truly know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And of course, when we say the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we include the sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So understand your tawheed correctly. Go through some of the previous things we did on tawheed. Go through it and try and understand it and ask questions about it. Because through the names and through Tawheed, we're going to get to know Allah. And we get to know Allah better, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts lifting the veils. And the first way is get a glimpse. You're not even sure. When you get these glimpses, the first time you get a glimpse, you're not sure, where does this come from? Did I imagine it? Is it my mind playing tricks on me or whatever? Don't worry. Don't worry, it will come again at the right time, and you will become more sure that this is something special that Allah has given you. Just a hint of witnessing. If you persevere and you purify your heart and you are able to remove some of the veils through better behavior and conduct and obedience, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lets you taste. And when you taste, you are now tasting. And the knowledge is beyond the mind. At the level of the glimpses, it still can be. At the level of the mind, still some of it, you're not sure. You can think about it and work it out or apply logic. But yeah, at this level you taste, it's not something you can work out or understand or describe. And then of course the last one is when you even go past these veils here, the veils that surrounds the secret of secrets, then you are a very blessed person. You have arrived at the point where your heart has to be very pure to have arrived at that position where you can drink to your satisfaction, so to speak, till you can't anymore. Your heart can't cope with more. You drink to the capacity of your heart that Allah allows you to drink. You must remember Allah's greatness and majesty is such that it has absolutely no limits. No limits. Allah's perfection is endless. So it doesn't matter how salih you are and what deeds you perform or what your status is, no one can ever reach the limit where they can say they know Allah completely. It's impossible for anyone, any person, any human being, not Malaa'ikah, not prophets. No one can know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala completely. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can know himself in totality. But insofar as human beings are concerned, the most perfect human being we know was Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he has reached levels that none of us can ever dream of reaching. But we will be allowed to climb a ladder, endless ladder. No matter how long you live, you can climb that ladder to acquire more experience and more tasting and drink and drink and drink and drink. You'll never get to the end of it because Allah's perfection and knowledge is utterly and totally endless. So when we speak about knowledge, this is where we need to aim for. Very few of us will get to this because these are states that's very special slaves who dedicate themselves tirelessly to the pursuit of purification of the heart. Not even all of them reach this, but this is a part that we should understand and know of what is possible out there. And let me say, it doesn't have to do with what your qualification is. It doesn't matter whether you have done only up to grade 6 or 7, or whether you have gone to university, or whether you're an alim, or whether you're an imam or a sheikh, or where you are just an ordinary person who wants to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah doesn't make a distinction between those things. Allah looks at the state of your heart. What kind of heart does the slave have? If the slave has a heart that is sincere and compassionate and soft, and a heart that I am pleased with, then Allah will give you, and you can become one of these. But it's not the easy path, because with it will of course come all the other things that goes with progress along this path, that you will be tested. You will be even tested more severely, so that your iman and taqwa can be rock solid. With every step that you take, there must never be a moment where you're unsure, and your belief is utterly and utterly correct and true at all stages, and you never take on what doesn't belong to you. You never set yourself up as a partner to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Always observe that etiquette of what belongs to Allah belongs to Allah. Then you start becoming a true slave. And even becoming a slave has various stages of development. Inshallah, if Allah allows, we're going to go through a future session what it means to be a slave. But alhamdulillah, I'm going to leave it like that. And I honestly want people to engage with me on these issues and find out if they have questions, you know, put the questions. If they have comments, even if you just want to give me what your understanding is of how you understand that, just to test your own understanding, then that's also good. But it's good to engage with one another, and that's how I learn and you learn. Inshallah, I'm going to open the floor now for comments and questions. Okay, the floor is open.
But Salie, I just want to maybe go back and ask the question. When we were speaking about human beings being in angelic phase of that existence, at the point when they said Alastu bi rabbikum, and then obviously after that, when the physical body was created, when we were born, or before we were born, the soul was put into the body. That obviously is the state where then the trappings of the dunya, shaitan, and the nafs all become a pattern. So can we say then that all of these things, like shaitan can only have an impact on a human being on the basis of his ties to the dunya, in a sense?
Shaitan doesn't leave anyone alone. Not even the pious, not even the saints, not even Sultanul Awliya, Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jailani, when he even had experiences where Shaitan tried to divert him. So if he can be tested, you can be sure Shaitan is going to test you throughout your life. Shaitan is someone that we must understand how he operates, so that we can know how to respond to him. And inshallah, we will also dealing with Shaitan and come up with some suggestions of what Imam Ghazali says, how we should recognize Shaitan. And you can fight Shaitan. You can fight Shaitan. You can have a method of dealing with him like any other person. If you are strong enough and if you are clever enough, he's extremely clever. He will use a kind of method that will trick you without you even knowing. So if you understand that, you are able to fight him. So it's possible to get to a point where you can fight him, but his role is linked to our role on the dunya. That's where it begins and that's where it stops for him and us. Of course, he's going to be there on the day of Qiyamah, when Allah is going to call us to come and account for our deeds. And he will be there to say, Allah, they're lying. They are lying, Allah. I didn't force any one of them to do anything. You haven't given me that ability and that power to force anyone. I just whispered to them. I whispered to them. And they accepted that. So they acted and made their own choices. I maybe didn't answer your question correctly, but the point that I'm making is they are linked to, and the influence is limited to the period that we are on the dunya. So while we are in our angelic form and both before and after our bodies are born and die, they have no role there. Their role is only there, and the same for the nafs. And of course, if we're on the dunya, then the dunya only has a role insofar as when we're on the dunya. Okay. Is destiny with us, Shaida? Shaida, is destiny with us? Okay, anyone else? Aisha? Oh, Muhammad Farid, I see he's joined us. MashaAllah. I'm happy to see you are feeling better. Please, I'd like a comment from you.
Salie asked us, why do we say the Kalima? Can Salie answer that question again?
Yeah, I said when we what does Ashhadu Allah ilaha illallah means? Ashhadu Allah ilaha illallah means I bear witness. When you are called upon to be a witness for anything, they will ask you, were you there? Have you seen what happened? Or have you heard what happened? Were you present? If you didn't hear and you didn't see, then on what are you basing your witness? You actually have to be in a position to confirm that you have experienced or been present when that particular thing happened. That's normally when we say, I'm a witness. I can testify to this person's this or that or his innocence. Now, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is unseen, how do you bear witness if you don't know Allah, you haven't experienced Allah, you haven't seen Allah, you haven't tasted, you haven't whatever here in the dunya? You can say to Allah, I found it too difficult to work out how to believe correctly in you, Allah. So how can you say you bear witness? But if you link that, what I've said now, to the fact that deep inside you, your very essence, your ruh, experience that, was in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And could say when Allah asked, am I your Lord? And you said, yes, Allah, you are my Lord. That information is inside you. Because we could so easily say what I just said now, come up with all sorts of excuses, and Allah covers that in the Quran, lest you say you were unaware of that. Allah gave us that experience. Does it answer your question, Aisha?
Yes, Mr. Salie, shukran.
Afwan. Muhammad Farid. Or maybe he said he's not feeling well, so maybe he's not with us. Shaida, any last comments? Or I thought maybe if Destiny is with us tonight, he could also make a comment. Okay, I want to say we're going to continue with this. There's another section on the Ruh that we need to deal with. We will have a part 3 on this, inshallah. And then we'll go on to the heart itself, the qalb. Yeah, but our next session, inshallah, will deal with part 3 of what we've dealt with on the Ruh, inshallah. And we're going to end up on that note. And I'm going to ask Muhammad Fasih to make dua for us, inshallah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر دعواهم فيها سبحانك اللهم وتحيتهم فيها سلام وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Shukran jazilan to everyone. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala look after you and your families, make it easy for you, relieve you from all difficulties, problems, and awkward situations in your life, and bring us together, inshallah, next week. And may we all find a way of benefiting from this. And the quickest way to benefit from this is to try and find ways of changing our behavior to implement some of these things. Then I think we've really benefited from this. May Allah make it easy for all of us, inshallah. Shukran jazilan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
السلام عليكم.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. I'm going to phone you now, Muhammad Fasih, inshallah.